So, buying a childcare center isn't just another business decision. For many buyers, it's a dream. It's the chance to own something meaningful, to make a difference in children's lives, and to build lasting wealth. But I'll be honest, most first time buyers underestimate just how complex this process really is. I see buyers make the same avoidable mistakes over and over again. And those mistakes can cost them deals, delay closing by months, or even land them in financial or legal trouble. So today, I want to walk you through the 5 most common mistakes childcare buyers make, and more importantly, how to avoid them. So you can approach your purchase with clarity, confidence, and a strategy that actually gets you to the finish line. Mistake number 1, not understanding the buying process. The biggest misconception I see is that buyers think purchasing a preschool is like buying a house. You find one you like, you make an offer, the bank approves the loan, and boom, you're the new owner. And that is not how it works. Buying a childcare business is a multi-step process with several critical stages. Exploration, understanding the market, financing options, and what kind of school fits your goals. LOI, letter of intent. This is negotiating initial terms and exclusivity before due diligence begins. And then we get to due diligence. So that's where we're digging deep into financials, operations, and legal standing and compliance. Then we're going to get to the purchase agreement. And that's where we are going to negotiate the final terms, often an APA or asset purchase agreement or equity sale. Then we're going to get to the licensing and transition. And so preparing for ownership transfer, and this includes regulatory approvals. If you walk into this process blind, you're going to feel frustrated and overwhelmed, and you might unintentionally miss deadlines, break clauses, or walk away from a perfectly good deal simply because you didn't know what to expect. The pro tip, before you start shopping, learn the roadmap. Understand what each stage requires, how long it takes, and what your responsibilities are as a buyer. Knowledge is leverage here, and it will save you time, stress, and money. So mistake number 2, overlooking licensing complexities. Licensing is one of the most underestimated parts of the acquisition process. Buyers often assume that once the sale closes, they can open the doors and start running the school. But in most states, a change of ownership triggers a brand new licensing process. And that could mean you have to submit new ownership applications, you need to pass health, fire, and safety inspections, you need to meet the director qualifications, you need to undergo background checks and fingerprinting. And in some cases, this process can take 60 to 120 days. And if you haven't planned for it, it could delay your opening or cause major disruption. I've seen deals fall apart simply because buyers don't understand the licensing requirements until they were already under contract. And the seller was ready to close, but the buyer couldn't legally operate for several months. So pro tip, before you sign anything, talk with your state's licensing agency. Understand the process, the timelines, and the requirements so you can align your expectations and your deal terms accordingly. Mistake number 3, shopping before talking to a lender. Here's another huge mistake. Buyers start touring schools without ever talking to a bank. They have no idea what their borrowing power is, how much cash they'll need, or whether they even qualify for SBA financing. This is the equivalent of house hunting with no pre-approval, except the stakes are higher and the process takes longer. In childcare acquisitions, most lenders require 10 to 20% down or even up to 30% plus some working capital. They'll want to see your personal financials, tax returns, and business plan before issuing a term sheet. And the underwriting process can take 45 to 90 days. If you haven't built a lender relationship before you start shopping, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. You might fall in love with a school you can't afford, or worse, you might lose a deal to another buyer who already has financing lined up, or at least a relationship. So make financing your first step, not your last. Meet with lenders early, understand your borrowing capacity, and get pre-qualified before you ever request a listing packet. So mistake number 4, assuming the broker works for you. And this is one of the most misunderstood parts of the buying process. In residential real estate, the buyer's agent and the seller's agent split the commission, and buyers often get representation without having to pay for it directly. But in commercial transactions, things tend to work differently. So most brokers represent the seller, not the buyer. They're hired to market the business, protect the seller's interest, and get the best possible deal for their client. This doesn't mean you can't have representation, but if you want someone to advocate for you, review deal terms on your behalf, or negotiate your side of the agreement, you'll usually need to hire and compensate that professional yourself. And here's the key point. In commercial transactions, buyers are considered sophisticated parties. And that means you're expected to understand the nature of the deal and who represents whom. Expecting a broker to be your personal shopper or fiduciary is a misunderstanding of how this industry works. So pro tip, always clarify agency relationships early. Ask the broker who they represent. If you want dedicated buyer representation, explore hiring someone who specializes in that and understand how they'll be compensated. Mistake number 5, not understanding what you're buying. So finally, many buyers don't fully understand what they're purchasing. And this is where expensive surprises happen. So most childcare centers are sold through an asset purchase agreement, or APA, meaning you're buying the business assets like furniture, equipment, goodwill, and customer relationships, but not the legal entity itself. That usually means you don't assume past liability. Other times you might purchase the entity, acquiring the company stock or membership interest. This can have very different legal, tax, and liability implications. If you don't understand the structure, or worse, you sign an agreement without fully grasping what's included, you could end up with debts, lawsuits, or tax consequences you didn't anticipate. So here's the pro tip. Work with a business attorney or CPA before signing anything. They'll help you understand the structure, the implications, and whether the deal makes sense for your long-term goals. So closing thoughts. Buying a preschool is exciting, but it's also complex. The difference between a smooth, successful acquisition and a stressful, expensive disaster often comes down to preparation. If you understand the process, plan for licensing, get financing in order, clarify representation, and fully grasp what you're buying, you'll put yourself miles ahead of most buyers in this market. And to help you get started, I've created a free resource, the Buyer Prep Roadmap. It's a step-by-step guide for understanding the buying process, preparing for financing, and asking the right questions before you sign anything. And you can download it in the resource library. And if you want early access to new listings before they hit the market, join my buyer list, and the link is below. This video is for information purposes only and does not replace any legal or financial advice from a professional.